put my volume down. All right, we good? Good. Land deal. What's up? Huh?
We're going.
Oh, we're going? Okay. All right, guys. Sean Terry here, Flip2Freedom.com. We're going to do a podcast episode right now. We've got YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all ready to go. So if you guys are ready to get into it, let's get into it. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Sean Terry here, and welcome to the Flip2Freedom Podcast. And we are on episode number 157. All right, episode number 157. And today we're going to talk about how to read a seller like a book, right? There's 4 personality types that we can identify and to negotiate with sellers in a different manner, in a different format. And we're going to talk about that today and how to understand the personality type, how to identify the personality type, and then how to negotiate with the personality type. This has been one of the most asked questions when talking to people. I get questions in my DM on Facebook, whatever. They want to kind of know the personality type so when they meet somebody, they're able to talk in their language. You know how they have that book, what's it called? Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Well, there are 4 different people and they're from 4 different planets, I can tell you. And if we talk to them in what we believe where we're from, then we're going to speak a complete different language. So we're going to get into the 4 personality types, how to identify, how to negotiate. This is the first time you're listening to the Flip2Freedom Podcast. If you're listening maybe on iTunes or on our other different channels, thank you for being here. This entire podcast is specifically about wholesaling. Wholesaling is where you market for a motivated seller. See, once we understand that 95%, and then we're talking about wholesaling houses, right? Wholesaling houses specifically. So when someone's going to sell a house, 95% of the population, what they're going to do is they're going to list a house with a realtor, and they're going to put it on the MLS. They're going to get their house all pretty. They're going to have a realtor come over, take a bunch of pictures. They're going to fix up some things around the house the best they can, and then they're going to stick it on the market, and then buyers are going to come look at the property, and then they're going to sell the property, and they pay a commission and closing costs. They fix up stuff, and that's the traditional means of going out and essentially selling a property out in the market, right? So what we do is we're not targeting the 95%. We're targeting the 5% of the people that are in a situation where they don't have 100 days on market or 30, 40, 50 days on market. They don't want to fix up the property. They don't have time to wait. They don't want to pay commissions or closing costs or fees. So there's this small niche, a small percentage of the population that don't want to go through the traditional means, and they don't want to list with a realtor. What they want to do is they want to sell the property. They want to sell it now, or they're in a situation where they need to sell, right? So who would these 5% be? Well, it could be someone that has a property that that's in fire damage, right? Potentially burned down. It could be a seller who is an absentee owner, so they don't live there. They're an out-of-state owner, but has the property as a rental, and the tenant trashed the property, and there's deferred maintenance on the property, and then they just want to sell the property, right? So that could be one. It could be someone where they haven't paid their mortgage and now their property is in pre-foreclosure, and now they don't know what to do. They can't come up with the $5, $7, or $10 or $15,000 to save their house, right? So that might be a situation. It might be a situation where it's a vacant property. They had to move to a different state, and now the property's a vacant property, right? So that might be a situation. So there's a lot of different scenarios where people would want to sell their property and sell it now versus trying to go through the traditional means. And that's where we are born, and that's where we as real estate wholesalers have the ability to do a couple different things. Number one is we can get the property under contract. See, a seller can only sell the property to one person, right? They can't sell it to 10 different people. They can sell the property, and we can use a real estate contract, and on that real estate contract, there's things that are incredibly important. One is a purchase price. Now, what is amazing about real estate that's different from pretty much any other vehicle is that, or any other asset, right, is that you can get a property at a discount. Meaning, if you have a $200,000 house, you can get that property under contract for $120,000, $100,000, $80,000, $130,000, and you can have literally built-in equity in the property from the minute you purchase. That's huge. Right? So you can't do that with a stock, right? I think Apple's, I don't know what Apple is right now, but imagine buying Apple at 50% of its value. You can't do that, right? That's called insider trading. You have to buy it way back when, but you can't buy it today at 50% of the value. But guess what? You can buy a house at 50% of the value if the seller's in a distressed situation, which that gives us an incredible opportunity as real estate wholesalers. We can provide a solution for these sellers that are in distress. They need to sell now. And what we can do is we can contract that property, and on the contract are two specific things. Well, actually there's three. Number one is the purchase price, right? And our goal is to get the property under value, under market, and get it, if we determine market's 100, we want to get it for $50,000 or $60,000, right? If the market is 200, we want to get it for 100 or 200, $120,000. So that is a deep discount property. Now, that's number one. That's the first thing. We want to get it at a discount. Number two is we're going to have a closing time frame, right? So typically it's anywhere from 30 to 45 days to give us time to be able to close the transaction, essentially find a buyer. Then the third thing on the contract is what's going to be an out clause. Now, an out clause is interesting because what an out clause does is it lets us get out of the contract, no harm, no foul. Now, one of the best out clauses is have an extended inspection period, right? So a 30-day inspection period or a 45-day inspection period on the contract that allows you to, within that inspection period, cancel at any time, right? So let's say you don't find a buyer, you can cancel the contract and you can walk away from the contract. No harm, no foul. So the bottom line is this, is that now we can get a property under contract. That gives us control of the asset, and you're the only one that can control the asset. So theoretically, we have $100,000 house. We get it under contracts for, say, $110,000. We're the only one that can control the contract, and we have 30 to 45 days to essentially find a buyer for the property. Now, what we can do is now we have an amazing asset. We put it out to the market. And we can find cash buyers. We can put the property on Craigslist. We can put it on Zillow. We can talk to other real estate agents about the property, and we can sell the property. We can pull a list of cash buyers and send them a postcard with the property. We can pull a list of cash buyers and send them a voice message, called ringless voicemail about the property, and we can get that property sold quickly within our time frame. And let's say theoretically we get under contract for $110,000 and we sell it for $120,000. That means the buyer now has committed and signed a contract for $110,000, of which you're in contract for, $120,000. You're in contract for $110,000. So you get a contract with a buyer for $120,000. You got a contract with a seller for $110,000. They bring 100% of the funds in, all $120,000, of which $110,000 goes to the seller, and the difference goes to you of $10,000, right? $10,000, right? So you can do that. What if you do it once a month? That's 10 grand a month. What if you do it three times a year? That's $30,000 extra a year. What would it take on your current job to get a $30,000 a year bonus? What would it take? Think about it. What would you have to do to get a $30,000 a year bonus on your current job? Right? Well, let's not talk about it, right? Because who knows what that could be. But the bottom line is then you can turn it into a business. So what I do, right? I've been doing this business for 15 years now, back since 2003, when I flipped my first deal when I was 33 years old, and I made $11,008, and that changed everything for me because it gave me proof of concept. And I found a seller and I found a buyer. It wasn't easy, but I worked my way through it, and we closed the transaction. I made $11,008, and that literally changed everything for me. So from that point, I've went out and I've built a team. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona right now. I literally got 3 sales guys going out there, going on about 20 appointments a week. I got lead managers. They're taking all the inbound calls from our various different marketing channels. I got a disposition guy that sells all the property. Everything happens. Leads come in, appointments get booked, guys go on appointments, offers get made, contracts get brought, they come back, and then boom, we sell them through. And literally, I don't even actually have to even see the properties. I mean, we flip, the majority of the properties we flip, I don't even actually see them, maybe see pictures of them, and that's it. So you can build this into a huge business, done hundreds of millions of dollars of wholesale flips over the years, and it's been a phenomenal thing. And I've moved into more residential, more commercial side of the business. I own about 420 units, multifamily units for cash flow. And the whole process of what we talk about on this particular podcast, or on all the different podcasts, are how to break in, how to understand the mechanics of going out and doing this business on a daily basis. Now, what we're going to talk about today specifically is when we are meeting with a seller. A seller calls from our marketing. The marketing could be cold calling. It could be Google AdWords. It could be direct mail campaigns. It could be ringless voicemail. It could be voice broadcasting. It could be TV advertising, right? And what happens is we have inbound calls from sellers, and now you book an appointment with a seller, right? You have everything prepared. You go meet the seller, and when you're going to meet the seller, what happens is you have to, it's a people business. You got to find out and you got to learn about who they are. And specifically when we're doing that, we're talking about identifying the personality type. Now you can use what we're going to talk about today in pretty much, any type of negotiations, but when you're able to identify a seller and their personality types, now you can speak their language, right? So I think this is 157 now different episodes we have, and it talks about everything, every single process that it takes to go out and from marketing to talking to sellers to getting contracts to selling properties and going out and crushing this business. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're brand new and you're listening for the first time, go to flip2freedom.com, flip2freedom.com. You can download a book that I wrote. It's a 129-page book that explains the entire process, explains marketing channels, explains pretty much every aspect of the business. And I've had people tell me that they spent well over $1,000 for the same information that I give away for free. So it's a very detailed book in the specifics on exactly how to go out and get deals done. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the 4 personality types, how to read sellers like a book, how to understand their personality types, right? And then be able to negotiate with them in a manner that we can get those properties under contract. Now, the 4 personality types. So what happens is, follow me on this. You get a lead that comes in from a seller, right? Talk to him on the phone. Seller goes, hey, I want to sell my house. And you say, great. Now, you book an appointment. Let's say your appointment is tomorrow, for an example, Wednesday. And you go to the appointment and you're driving up, you pull your car in front of the house, you kind of drive the neighborhood to figure out what are the properties for sale and get a feel of the neighborhood. You pull up in front of the property, you get your attaché with you, your little, your notepad with you there, and you go up and you go up to the house and you knock on the door, right? You knock on the door. And what happens is the seller comes to the door, they open the door, and now you have your first interaction with the seller, and you introduce him. Hi, my name's Sean, 1-800-FAIR-OFFER, and we spoke on the phone the other day, and want to talk to you about buying your house. And then you walk in the property, and you're initially in the phases of building rapport with the seller. Now, I can tell you this stuff is critical, knowing this information, because it can make or break whether you get the contract or not, right? I know people that typically go on appointments with sellers. They go into an appointment, they walk in, they walk around the house. You know, they have no idea what type of personality type is the seller. They have no idea what they're specifically looking for, how to solve their problem, because they never asked. They walk around the house, they give a lowball offer to a seller. A seller says they want to think about it. Then they said, okay, I'll follow up with you. They walk out of the house and they never get the contract, right? So knowing what we're about to talk about here today is critically important when it comes to that next level of getting and converting deals from converting leads into contracts. All right, so let's talk about the first personality type. So you go up the door, you knock on the door, and you talk to the seller, and you open up the door and you walk in, and you're kind of looking around the house and stuff, and you ask the seller a couple questions, and you say, "Hey, Mr. Seller, how long have you owned the property? How long have you lived here?" And you ask things like, for big ticket items, Mr. Seller, when was the last time the AC was serviced, right? That's a really good question, because you want to know, how old the AC is and how long it's serviced, because your buyer on the other side is going to want to know that information, right? So the seller comes and he goes, "You know what? I'm glad you asked." And he goes in the back room and he comes out and he has a folder. And in that folder is a list of every single time that AC unit was serviced, when it was serviced, who serviced it, the date it was serviced, what they did on the property, and has everything filed, organized perfectly, right? Now, some of you that are listening right now are like that person, right? Right? And that is an analytical person. Analytical, and then you ask him, "So let me ask a question, Mr. Seller, what do you do for a profession?" And the seller comes back and goes, "Well, I'm an electrical engineer," right? An electrical engineer. They're more of a technical type person. So the first personality we're talking about, and we're talking about identifying that personality type by asking a couple questions, is an analytical personality type. Now, an analytical personality type, and here's the characteristics, and I want to see if you can relate, if you are that personality. So listen to what I'm about to tell you. And I want you to raise your hand either on Instagram over here, on Facebook over here, if you are this personality type. So an analytical, they love, right, numbers. They love facts, right? They love people that are on time. They're rigid about time. They're prompt. They're very logical, right? They're calculated. They love things. They get excited about things in writing. They like to analyze. They're not outgoing. They have a long attention span. They're conservative. They're non-assertive. That's incredibly important. They're non-assertive. What does non-assertive mean? Non-assertive means that if you give them a lowball number, they're not going to freak out and go, "What are you talking about? $80,000. No way, $80,000. There's way more than $80,000. You're crazy." That is something that's assertive, right? This is a podcast episode we're doing, episode 157. So non-assertive, right? A non-assertive person is going to go, "Well, I appreciate you coming out, but I'm going to think about it," right? I'm going to think about it. And that is a non-assertive approach and a non-assertive of how an analytical person is going to do. They love facts. They're prompt. They're logical. They're rigid. They're very calculated. And they like things in writing. So if that's you, right? If you're an analytical person and you love things in writing and you love people that are prompt and you love things that are on time, right? Raise your hand if that's you. So Chris is an analytical person, right? So we got a couple people in here that's saying, okay, analytical, you're analytical, right? So I'm slightly analytical. Now, let me ask you a question, right? For the analytical type people, do you like when people are late? Now it's funny. I've done this presentation. We're talking about personality types, and I've actually done this on stage. And I brought up all 3 or 4 of the analyticals of people that identify themselves as analytical. And he says, "Hell no!" on here. He goes, and I brought him up on stage. I said, "Do you like when people are late?" And they hate people that are late. They immediately break rapport. They do not like the person. They believe their time is not valuable. They believe the other person believes their time isn't valuable, and they literally breaks rapport, right? Breaks rapport. So it's interesting though. I remember I had a sales guy that I worked with a handful of years ago that we hired on, and we eventually used to do what's called a compliance call, where we call the seller and ask and kind of do a survey to see how the rep was doing, right? And in doing that, we found out that he show up late the majority of the time, right? And he was literally 25% of the population that like people on time, that are prompt, literally broke rapport and wondered why his conversions weren't up to speed, is because he was late half the time with these sellers. So when we're dealing with an analytical person and we're talking to an analytical person, and first off, we want to identify an analytical by asking questions. Are they, what's your profession? I'm an engineer. Engineer is a huge giveaway that someone is analytical. So if you ask another question, say, hey, when was the last time the roof was replaced? When the last time was the AC service? When was the last time when you purchased all the appliances in the property? Those gives the opportunity for the seller to come back and give you their personal file of everything all written down when everything was handled in their house. That's a good indication of how to identify someone that's analytical, right? So now you find someone that's analytical. Then what we're going to do, now that we know we're analytical, when it comes to negotiating with an analytical person, first off, we want to show up on time, number one. Number two is when we're presenting the contract to them, when we're presenting an offer to them, we want to make sure that makes sense. We want to make sure it's logical. We want to make sure that they can understand how you came up with your numbers. You have your 3 comps. You have the amount of renovations. You have maybe a risk number in there, whatever, or you have a holding cost number. So that's going to come out to a logical number, which is essentially your offer price. Now you have your offer price. It's a logical way that you came up with it that makes sense. Now you're going to present the contract to them, right? And what happens is a lot of people come in and they go, here's the contract and here's this, and they just kind of breeze through the contract. You do not do that with an analytical. You do the exact opposite. You go through every single line item and you talking to the seller and validating that they understand what you're talking about, right? And hey, does this make sense? Do you have any questions about this before I go on the next section? Okay, here's this section. Hey, here's a closing date, and here's a closing time, and here's what we do. Do you have any questions about that? You clear? Do you want me to cover anything on that? And then as you're going through each specific line item in the contract in detail. And when you do that, they're going, wow, you know what they're feeling? You know what they're thinking to themselves? Wow, this guy is really thorough. He's not hiding anything, right? Which we're not. We're being straight up and honest with them, and we're speaking their language. Now, if you do this with one of the previous other personality types that we're going to talk about here in a second, they're going to be like that. They're going to glaze over and they're going to get to the point, right? So this analytical person, you have to go through all the details. Now with this one, you cannot push them to close, right? You're going to lay out all the information. You're going to say, hey, listen, you're going to make an offer, and then you're going to ask what's called a closing question, right? A closing question. And the closing question is, let me ask you a question, Mr. Seller. I gave you an offer for $150,000. Would you like to close on Friday the 12th or Monday the 15th? Which would be better for you, right? And you're putting that out there. It's called a closing question to a seller, right? So when you do that, right? What it's going to do, it's going to put a close on. Now, a couple things are going to happen with an analytical type person. They're going to say, okay, well, I'd rather do Monday, and then you can write up the contract. Or what's going to happen, is they're going to give you a blow off and say, hey, I just want to think about it. So, and then from that standpoint, you cannot push with an analytical, because the analytical, they're going to push away. So what we do is we pull back and said, hey, you know what, Mr. Seller, that's fine. I just, why don't you take the contract? Why don't you read it over? If you have any questions, you can call me, and you pull it away and say, listen, if you have, any question or anything like that, you can call me or whatever. But if you could do me the favor, Mr. Seller, I've got to make a decision, and let's say today is Tuesday or whatever, and I got to make a decision by Wednesday or Thursday at 5 o'clock. Right? I've got a couple other people I'm talking to, a couple other contracts. I really only want to move forward on one property. But could you please give me an answer no later than Thursday at 5 o'clock? Can I at least get that commitment from you? Did I give you time to look over, answer any questions? Could you do that? This is analytical. That's how you handle an analytical type person, is you have to give them the ability, and also to read over the contract and feel comfortable. And the more you pull away, what happens is the more they're going to trust you, respect you, and move forward to do business with you. So that's an analytical personality type, identifying the personality, understanding the personality, reading the personality, and then negotiating with that personality so you can get the contract done. So that is what's called the analytical, right? Now the next one is called which is we call blue. Right? And this is social. This is social. So the most important person to this person, the most important aspect to this personality type is communication, right? This is the type of person that they're standing in line at the bank, and they, and they've got, 12 people in front of them in the bank. They're trying to go cash their check on Friday, and they end up talking to everybody. They're talking to the person in front of them. They're talking behind them. They're just talking to everybody, and they end up being best friends by the time they even get to the bank teller. They're passing out their phone number, and next thing you know, they're going to happy hour with 3 or 4 people at the place, right? So a social personality, understanding a social personality is important. So a social personality, and identifying that, is they are fast to make decisions. That's key. This personality type we're talking about will sign a contract right on the spot. They're happy, spontaneous, energetic. They do have a short attention span. They're optimistic. They're flexible. They're outgoing. Loves to have fun. They're assertive and responsive, right? If you tell them, give them a lowball offer, they'll come back right at you. They're impulsive, right? Likes to build relationships. So with the social, the more that you talk to them, the more you have a conversation with them, the more that they will like and trust you. And if they like and trust you, they'll do business with you. So I'll give you an example. I went on an appointment, met this seller, and she was a total social. The house was trashed. She went through a divorce situation. The husband literally left her with this house that was halfway remodeled and done. And she was sitting in this house, just literally disgraced on the condition of the property. And I started talking about this. I said, hey, so what happened here? What was the situation? And she literally talked for 45 minutes. And she talked, oh my gosh, and this, that, and the other, and yada, yada. And here's the thing. You've got to be attentive to the seller, right? Now, how many people are married, right? You guys are married before. If you're a husband and you got married to a wife, and have you ever had your wife talking to you, and you're just kind of sitting there and you're kind of glazing over, right? And she goes, you're not listening to me, right? And you're looking at him, your wife, you're focused in on your wife, but your brain is somewhere else. And they go, you're not listening to me. You can't do that with a seller. You literally have got to be locked in, 100% dialed in and present with that seller to be able to build that level of rapport with them and be able to do that. So talking to the seller, she told me the entire story about how she went through the divorce and the situation and yada, yada, and how it works and this, that, and the other. And literally after about probably 30 to maybe 40 minutes, the interesting thing happened is that she goes, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known you. I feel like I've known you forever. I just so easy to talk to you, and I really appreciate you listening to what I had to say. She loved it. And then guess what? I gave her an offer. We negotiated a little bit on an offer, and she said, you know what, I like the way, I feel like I know you. I'd rather do business with you than anybody else. We sign the contract and we get the deal done, right? We get the deal done. So the bottom line is that this is incredibly important. Reading the personality is you got to get them talking about themselves. You got to interact. The more you talk with them, the more they like and trust you, because people will not do business with people they don't like and trust, right? So that's critical. So that is the social, that is blue, the social personality. The next one, we'll save that one for last. We'll go to the next one. Now we're going to talk about social conscious. Now remember, we're talking about the 4 personality types. We just talked about the green, which is analytical. Someone said YouTube stopped working. Is it dead? Oh, jeez. So Chris's phone died on there. So maybe we should have more phones like laying around so we have that. Anyway, so we'll put the video up here. He'll edit it out and put it back up there. So thanks, Mark, for telling us. All right, so we got the first personality is analytical. We got the second now is social. We got 2 more coming. This one right here is social conscious. This is a little bit more harder to read. I can tell you that. Social conscious, they're very agreeable, right? They like to build relationships very similar to a blue, right? They will make a decision if patient. They're caring, they're low risk takers, they're willing, they're soft hearted, they're respectful, they're supportive, they're not assertive, but they are responsive, they're very spiritual. These guys are very social conscious, meaning they want togetherness, right? They love helping the environment. Anything that's a win-win situation, they absolutely love. They want to make sure that their decision impacts everybody in a positive way. This is a social conscious type of person. And what happens when you're identifying the social conscious type of person and really trying to understand that personality type, you can ask them, say, let me ask you a question, Mr. Seller. What's the most important thing to you? Is it the price, or is it where you want to make sure that it's a win-win situation for everybody at all parties and also makes an impact on the surrounding neighborhood in a positive way? That's a setup question right there. And a social person would say, hey, listen, I just want to make sure it's a win-win, but I want to really make sure I'm comfortable with who I do business with. A social conscious will say, I want to have a win-win situation, but I also really want to make sure my decision impacts everybody else in a positive way. Bam, now you know it's a social conscious person. Now you can identify that personality type. And now, what is the best way to negotiate? You have to slow down. You got to slow down. You have to slow down. You can't push hard. You have to make sure you go through everything slowly, go through the contract slowly. You have to get validation from them. And with the social conscious person, after you're going through this information with them, right, then, if you have something like, I would add to your presentation or add that, listen, you support a charity organization, or how your decision, what's great about it is some of the buyers or fix and flipper that you work with makes the neighborhood incredible. It's going to bring up the value of the whole neighborhood for all the neighbors. It's going to make a great home for a new person to come in. It's going to be a positive thing all the way. So social conscious, you want to talk about the impact of their decision, and you want to take them slowly because you realize that they're not assertive, but they are responsive. So you can build a relationship with them. You want to spend time building a relationship and really letting them know how their decision will impact everybody else in a positive way. But if you push too hard with this, they're going to say, I want to think about it. They're going to throw their hands up, and you're not going to be able to push them over the edge. So you got to spend time on the relationship, building a rapport with them, and then showing them how their decision is a win-win and will impact everybody in a positive way. Then they will desire to do business with you over everybody else. So that is the third personality. We've got the analytical, right? We've got the social, blue, analytical's green, social's blue, social conscious is yellow, right? And then we've got the red, right? Red are the drivers. So the red personality type is interesting. I'm a red personality type. I'm sure there's a lot of red personality types that are watching here today because you happen to attract who you are. But red personality types we call them drivers, right? So a driver is someone that's assertive, but they're non-responsive. They're typically well-dressed. They likes control. They're forcible, aggressive. They're egocentric. They're a poor listener, decisive, makes decisions quickly, very competitive, firm, stubborn, and tough. And their entire negotiation must win, right? So they must win in the negotiation. So talking to a driver, here's what it looks like when you're talking to a driver. And I'll give you an example. I got a deal under contract, walked in, and the first thing meeting the seller, not hi, how you doing, what's up? He said, first thing meeting the seller, say, hey, listen, property's open. Why don't you go watch the property? Let me know your number. I just tell you, I'm not going to reduce my price less than $334, and I'm not signing anything today. Go ahead and go look through it. That's what he said when meeting this guy, right? When meeting him, he's like, I'm not doing it. Just boom. That's what he said. I'm like, okay. I said, well, and I was right over the top, right? I was like, okay. So, why don't you come show me the property since you lived here all these years? You probably give me an idea of the conditions. So if I do have a question while walking around the house, you're able to give me that. Can you help me with that there? And I came back over the top and he goes, fine. And he came over and he walked the house with me. I said, okay, listen, what happened with this? This looks like it was addition on the property. Was this permitted? Was it done after the fact? Was it done before the fact? Who did it? Was there contractors that did it? And I had him explain that whole situation. He had these stepping stones outside of his house that had names in them, right? And there are names of actually his kids. And he started telling me about his kids and the names in the stone and when it was put up there and how long it was put up there. Talked to me about the roof situation. Talked to me about the AC situation. Talked to me about the neighborhood and stuff like that. So I was asking him questions about it. So I got him to start talking about the property and asking specific questions and letting him sell me on the property to be able to do it. Now, remember, he said, I'm not signing anything today and I'm not lowering my price, right? But guess what? I need to lower his price. But I knew he's a driver and he wanted to win. So if you know a driver has to win and you're negotiating with a driver, that means you've got to start low. So his number was $334. I came out with my first initial offer at $250. Now, with a driver, I came out with a low number at $250. Remember, he's assertive but non-responsive. Non-responsive means that he's harder to build rapport with, right? He's hard to build rapport with. But in this particular situation, he is assertive. So he freaked out, right? Then typically drivers are going to freak out if you give them a low number. What? $250,000? I came all the way down here. That's a waste of my time. You come out here for $250,000? Are you crazy? What do you think? I'm just going to give the property away? Quote, right? But I knew I had to start there. I said, listen, dude, you know what? You told me what your number was. You know what? The property needs a bunch of different renovations on the property. And he goes, the property's in great condition. What are you talking about? I said, listen, it doesn't have a master bedroom. It doesn't, it has a master bedroom, but it doesn't have a master bathroom. That means, guess what? I'm going to have to blow out an addition on this property to get a master bath. You can't sell this property in this area with this price without a master bath. I said, do you have any idea what putting on a master bath's going to cost? We're talking over $50,000, right? Have you addressed that situation yet? And guess what? I found an issue with the property and I used it as a negotiation tool with him. And it made logical sense, right? It made logical sense. He's like, yeah, but rah, 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 and he's talking all this stuff. So we went back and forth and we got up to the point where I got him down off his 334 and he was like at 310, maybe 315. And then, yes, he was a total jerk. And then I came up to like 390. So we still had a fairly large gap. So guess what? With a driver, you have to take away the offer. I said, you know what? Sounds like you don't want to sell. Sounds like you don't want to sell. It's best, why don't you just put it on the market? You can put it out for your 334. More than likely, it's going to sit here forever, because no one's going to buy this thing with a master bathroom. So, you know what? I'll take my cash, right? I'll take my cash and I'll go elsewhere. And I'm sure there's a property right down the street I could buy. I do like the neighborhood. There was someone that's a little more reasonable, right? So now I'm prodding him, right? So I pick up my stuff out of the house and I leave. and I'm walking out to the door, and he's walking out with me. Remember, he's not signing anything, and he's stuck at like 315, and I'm stuck at like 290. So we have a fairly large gap, and I'm walking out, and on the back of his truck, he had a sticker, right? Now, I'm walking out, right, of fear of loss. And you got to realize that sellers make decisions based upon logic, but they also make decisions based upon emotion. And there's two emotion. One is, right, desire for gain, and the other is fear of loss. There's a bigger motivator in fear of loss than is the desire for gain. So then you pull away from the particular deal. You pull away from it. And I did. I got up and I grabbed my stuff and said, sounds like you don't want to sell the property. You know what? Someone else can come in here. You know what? I'm sure any other person's going to come here is going to tell you there is no master bathroom and there's no way you can sell it at this price point without a master bathroom, without adding on. It's going to cost minimum $50,000 to add on a master bathroom. So you know what? If you don't believe me, you can hear from every other person that comes through here. And I'm sure you've heard it before, right? So then I got up and grabbed my stuff and walked out. And as I was walking out, I found an NRA sticker, NRA, right? So that like the Rifle Association, National Rifle Association. And I'm a Marine, right? So I'm a former Marine, a gun guy, Second Amendment guy, NRA, right? So he has an NRA sticker on there. And I said, hey, you're a gun guy? You like the NRA? And next thing you know, we're having this entire conversation about guns and this, that, and the other, and how he used to be in the military, how I used to be in the military, and this, and now he's a fireman, and this, that. So now we're going back and forth, and now we're building a really deeper level of rapport, right? Now, interestingly enough, remember, I'm in negotiation with this seller now. And what I'm trying to do now with a driver, we want to find something to challenge them. We want to challenge the driver. So now the driver basically moves forward to make a decision. So here's the interesting thing. I took a gamble, right? And I knew that if this guy was an NRA guy, and I said, hey, so are you a Trump guy? Right? And I just kind of threw that out there just because I had a pretty good idea since he was a driver and he was an NRA guy, and he goes, yeah. Then he goes off on this and political and Trump and that and da-da-da and all this stuff and how he loves them and this, that, and the other. He's talking all this stuff, right? So now I had my opportunity to challenge this guy. I said, listen, I'm at 290, you're at 315. Why don't we meet, right, at $300,000. We'll get this thing at $300,000. I'll pay cash. I'll take this thing off your back. You don't have to deal with it anymore. You know what? And here's the thing. You don't want to, and I'm challenging him now, right? You don't want to sell this to a Democrat, do you? And I looked at him like that. And he goes, hell no, I don't sell it. I said, then good. Let's just get it done at the $300,000 and get it done. Now, here's the thing, is that it's irregardless what I am, Republican or Democrat, that's not the case. If I could have flipped it either way, it's negotiation because I'm a chameleon to what this seller is, right? And it doesn't matter. But with a driver, you have to challenge a driver, and I completely challenged him on that. He absolutely did not want to sell to a Democrat, and he would do anything not to, and he signed the contract right there. He came down from 334 to 300. I went up from 250. He felt like he won in the negotiation, signed the contract. So not only did he sign the contract there on the spot, and he came down from 334, but we ended up actually friends. And we went in and completely renovated the property. He came back and brought his wife, came back and saw the whole property and absolutely loved it. So the bottom line is when you are negotiating with sellers like this and you're doing that negotiation, you got to find ways to be able to, especially with a driver, be able to understand them, know it's going to be a battle. With a driver, you have to start super low and let them beat you up all the way to that number, so eventually you can get that deal signed and get it done, right? And Here's the thing. Drivers, red, and blue, social, will sign a contract right there on the spot. They will sign a contract there on the spot. Greens will only if they're slow to make decisions. They want to make sure they have all they will typically say, I need to look it over. I'd like to have it over. I just want to be able to make sure I make the right decisions. Analyticals are a little slower, and you want to back off on pushing them. Same with social conscious. They will sign the contract today, but they really have to know that you care. They really have to know that that their decision will impact people in a positive way. So here's the thing. This will work, understanding these personality types, pretty much in any aspect of your life, right? Any aspect of your life, it will. This will make absolute total sense when it comes to when you're talking. Now, so you might wonder, well, what is your wife? Well, what are your kids? Or what is your in-laws? Or you're going to buy a car, and what is that? The sales guy, is he an analytical? Is he a red? How's he working with it? There's other ways to challenge reds. It's more you've got to find ways to challenge them, right? It's a little bit tough because it's there is no one perfect way to challenge a red. It's more of what's in their story that you can use to challenge them in a situation where that that they don't want to. They don't want to be able to sell it to someone that is not, that they don't like or whatever. But interestingly, drivers though want to get the deal done. They want to sign the contract, and most importantly, they want to win, and they want to be beat up. Another way I've dealt with a driver, say, listen, you know what? We're not going to make any money on this thing. You know what? You're just too good of a negotiator. That's why you start at 250. You let him beat him up and say, listen, we're going to get, we're not going to hardly make anything on this thing, but listen, I got to get a deal going. I got to get this thing going, get my guys sitting there working, whatever, contractors working or whatever. And, some deals we make a bunch of money on, and obviously you're a pretty smart guy. So, so obviously we'll just kind of break even on this deal, but at least it'll keep my guys going. So let's just get the deal done at your number of, get it done for 300, and we'll call it a day. So they want to know that they win. They want to know that you're bloody. They want to know that you're going to lose. They want to know that it's you're the basically have lost the negotiation. So that being said, drivers are my favorite because I can get them to sign right there in the spot. Blues are my favorite because I can get them to sign right there in the spot. Analyticals, once you understand their personality type and you're going very slowly through the contract, they're going to love you. Nobody else does that. The competition, guess what? The competition are reds, blow away analyticals and social. Blow them away. Right? Because they come in on top of and it's funny because like I was saying earlier, I bring the personality types on stage, and I actually brought the point where actually the reds were heckling the yellows and the greens, heckling them on stage, right? Because I'm saying, because we said to the yellows, we asked the yellows, or on stage, I asked them, what is the most important thing to you making a decision? Like, oh, we just want to make sure it's a win-win situation. And the reds are going, losers, I just want to win, right? And they're like going, well, just want to make sure it makes a positive impact. And the reds are like, I just want to make money, right? So it's funny how different personality types. And here's the thing, if you don't know this, and you walk into a situation and you're negotiating and talking to a seller and you don't know their personality types, there is a very, very good chance you're not going to get the contract because you're speaking the wrong language to them, right? If you come in there and you start messing around with the presentation and kind of going through and go slow and you're not getting to the point, drivers are going to go nuts. With drivers, you want to say, listen, I'm not going to waste your time. Let me go get some numbers on the property. Why don't you come and show me what the thing is? Let's get this thing. Let's get it done as fast as possible. I know you got a bunch of things to do. I got a bunch of things to do. Let's just get to the point. Figure out a number that works for you. Figure out a number that works for me. And let's just get this thing wrapped up. Or guess what? We can go our own ways, right? And if you do that, what happens is the drivers will love you because they understand, because you immediately identify them. And you can basically point out that they're busy and respect their time. And then that gives you the ability to negotiate, right? Because the drivers love to negotiate and love to win in the situation. So that is the 4 personality types. We got the analytical, which is more, which is analytical, slow to make decisions, non-assertive, prompt, they love facts. Social is where they are assertive, responsive, they love to have fun, they're happy, spontaneous, optimistic, fast to make decisions. Social conscious will make decisions if patient, low risk taker, caring, respectful, supportive. And then driver, who's assertive but non-responsive, likes control, forceful, aggressive, egocentric, egomaniacs, poor listeners, and they must win. So those are the 4 personality types. I can tell you now that you got to listen to this episode again. Why? Because once you understand this, now start going on to your appointments. Go into your appointments with sellers and then try to identify the personality types and then try to flip and speak their language. Yellows, you want to start slowly and figure out and how their decision is going to impact everybody. Drivers, you're going to get to the point and you're going to come over the top of them. You're going to start at a very low number. They're going to freak out and then they can beat you up. Analyticals, you're going to get right into the facts and the numbers and the details and all that type of stuff, and they're going to love you for it. And social, you're just going to just sit there and talk to them. And the more you talk to them, the more you ask questions, the more you find out about them, the more they're going to love you. So, which is killer. So now someone asked, what if you have a married couple? Well, if you have a married couple, you have to get to the decision maker. And once you get to the decision maker, then you can figure out the personality. And then with that personality, then you can negotiate with that personality directly. Whew. All right, that's a lot of information, I can tell you, but it will be a game changer for you. I know when I started implementing this into my business, we got more contracts. It really made me understand sellers. I never showed up late to an appointment ever because I knew I was going to. Or if I happened to be late, I made sure I always called. I always told the seller, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I got caught in traffic. I apologize, but you know what? I'm going to be here. I'll be there within the next 7 minutes, and I just want to give you a heads up because I hate being late, and I do apologize. And you got to apologize. You know what? I've had people that came to my house. They wanted to sell me something, right? Whatever the case may be. I think we were getting like an awning for the back of our patio right there, and the guy was like 15 minutes late, and he didn't even call. And then he got there, he didn't even apologize, right? He didn't come in and say, hey, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry I'm late. I apologize. I was driving. I didn't want to call you or text you or whatever. But listen, I really want to apologize. I'm late. The guy just came in as if he didn't even care about my time. And guess what? We didn't buy from him. It just drives me bananas, right? To do that. And he didn't even call. And he wasn't even respectful enough to apologize. Stupid, right? Dumb in sales, right? If you make a mistake and you do something, own up to it and apologize for it. And you'll be amazed to see what happens. Anyways. Whew. All right. That's the 4 personality types right there. All right. So the bottom line is this, is that, go to Flip2Freedom. If you want more from me, go to Flip2Freedom, flip2freedom.com, flip2freedom.com. You can download my book for free. We have an entire course that teaches all this called Convert More Deals. Also, you got the Flip2Freedom Academy at getflip2freedom.com, getflip2freedom.com. There's a coupon code in there you can use called 50 off, 50 off. It's up for a limited time. So if you go there and it doesn't work, I apologize. You go there and it does work. Then you can literally get 50 off our courses right now for the month of February, so 2019. So if you go to getflip2freedom.com, you can go there, use the coupon code 50 off, and we talk about this. We talk about understanding sellers and negotiating, get properties under contract, and stuff like that. So go to flip2freedom.com, and I will see you guys on the next episode of the Flip2Freedom Podcast next week. on episode 158. All right, guys, take care. God bless.